You've just spent 12 hours bending over fields, your hands blistered from pulling barley, your lungs still aching from the smoke of a linen boil. And now, you're finally home, in a room made of mud, straw, and wishful thinking. Dinner? A chunk of bread harder than your landlord's heart and some ale so weak it might actually be hydrating. You bar the wooden door, blow out the fire, and then darkness. Not movie night darkness, not cozy blanket darkness. We're talking pitch-black, soul-swallowing void where your own hand vanishes before your eyes. And no, there's no nightlight. Not unless you count the occasional lightning flash that makes you question if you just saw something moving outside. We love to romanticize the Middle Ages with castles, knights, and fair maidens. But here's a plot twist. Medieval nights were less storybook charm and more psychological thriller. People didn't sleep through the night. They survived it. And if you thought insomnia was bad, try waking up at midnight for your regularly scheduled demon encounter. Before you get too cozy under your weighted blanket, maybe hit the like button. But only if you enjoy wandering into the past where bedtime came with a risk of plague, fire, and maybe being accused of witchcraft just for stepping outside. Go ahead, let me know in the comments. Would you survive a single night in the year 1320? Or would you be the one lighting salt circles and whispering prayers into the straw? Dim the lights, not too much. Silence the phone and prepare yourself. Because tonight we're not just going to bed. We're heading into the terrifying truth of medieval nights. A time when the dark didn't sleep, and neither did anyone else. You open your eyes to the gentle glow of morning light filtering through the cracks in your wooden shutters. The rooster has just begun his morning call, and you savor these final moments of warmth beneath your woolen blanket. Today is like any other in your medieval village, full of labor and simple pleasures. But tonight will be another story altogether. The day stretches before you, measured not by hours on a clock but by the arc of the sun across the sky. You rise from your straw mattress, wincing slightly as your back reminds you of yesterday's work in the fields. The floor beneath your bare feet is packed earth, cool and slightly damp from the morning dew that seeps through the foundation. Your cottage is humble but yours. A single room with walls of wattle and daub, a mixture of clay, soil, and straw that keeps out most of the elements. Overhead, wooden beams support a thatched roof that whispers and rustles with each breeze. You've lived here all your life, just as your parents did before you. Morning rituals are simple. You splash water from a wooden bucket onto your face, the shock of cold instantly clearing away the fog of sleep. The water comes from the village well, carried home yesterday evening in preparation for today. Water is precious, each drop accounted for, nothing wasted. Breakfast is quick and modest, a chunk of dark bread dipped in ale. Not the strong ale served at taverns, but a weaker, small beer that everyone drinks, even children. The water isn't always safe, but the brewing process makes ale more reliable. The slightly sour taste has become a comfort over the years. You dress simply in a linen shift, the fabric rough against your skin but durable. Over this goes a woolen kirtle, the color faded from many washings but still serviceable. The wool itches slightly, but you've grown accustomed to the sensation. In winter, layers matter more than style. Outside, your village is already stirring to life. Smoke rises from chimneys, chickens peck at the dirt, and the blacksmith's hammer rings out its metallic song. You nod to your neighbors as you pass. Everyone knows everyone here. Their stories, their troubles, their small joys. The day's work awaits in the common fields that surround the village. Depending on the season, you might be planting, weeding, or harvesting. Today it's tending to the barley crop, which means hours bent over beneath the strengthening sun, fingers working methodically through the soil. Work is communal. You labor alongside others, sharing stories and songs to make the time pass more easily. You speak of small matters, who might marry whom, whether rain will come soon, the new calf born in the night. News travels slowly here, carried by occasional merchants or pilgrims passing through. The sun climbs higher, beating down upon your back. You straighten occasionally to ease the ache, wiping sweat from your brow with your sleeve. There are no weekends in your world, only Sundays when work pauses for prayer, and the occasional feast day that brings welcome respite. Midday brings a brief rest. You share a meal with others, perhaps some cheese, more bread, maybe dried fruit if you're fortunate. You drink from a communal water skin, passing it around the circle. These moments of fellowship are precious, little islands of rest in a sea of constant labor. As afternoon wears on, You glance occasionally at the sun's position. Unlike your modern descendants with their precise timepieces, you measure hours broadly: morning, midday, afternoon, evening. But one thing you track with precision: the approach of sunset. The bailiff calls an end to fieldwork as the sun begins its descent toward the horizon. There's a collective sigh of relief as tools are gathered. Bodies ache from honest labor, but there's satisfaction in work completed. The barley will eventually become bread and ale, sustaining the village through winter. You hurry home with purpose now. There are still chores to complete before dark: feeding chickens, mending a torn sleeve, preparing the evening meal. Unlike your distant future relatives who might linger outdoors after sunset, you feel urgency in these final daylight hours. Your home welcomes you with familiar smells: wood smoke, dried herbs hanging from rafters, the earthen floor dampened to keep down dust. You stir the banked fire in your central hearth, carefully preserving the precious flames. Starting a new fire isn't impossible, but it's time-consuming, requiring flint, steel, and patience. The approaching sunset shifts something in your demeanor. There's a subtle tightening around your eyes, an efficiency to your movements that wasn't there during daylight hours. This transition isn't unique to you. Throughout the village, the same quiet preparation is happening in every home. Your evening meal is simple but filling: a pottage of vegetables and grain, perhaps with a small piece of salt pork for flavor if times are good. You eat from a wooden bowl, using a wooden spoon or bread as your utensil. Metal is too precious for everyday use in your station. As you eat, you watch the light fading through your small window opening. There's no glass, that's for churches and nobles, just a wooden shutter that will soon need closing. The diminishing light casts long shadows across your humble space, making the familiar suddenly strange. Outside, the village bell begins to toll. It's the curfew bell calling all to shelter for the night. The word curfew comes from couvre-feu, cover the fire, a command to bank flames to prevent nighttime disasters. But it serves another purpose too, marking the boundary between day and night. You rise to close your shutter, securing it with a wooden latch. Next comes the door, pushed firmly shut and barred with a heavy piece of wood that slides into iron brackets. These simple measures won't stop determined intruders, but they offer some peace of mind against the unknown. The fire provides your only light now, casting a warm orange glow that does little to push back the gathering shadows. You don't light candles or oil lamps; those are luxuries beyond your means. Tallow candles made from animal fat would be possible, but they smoke terribly and smell worse. Darkness gathers in the corners of your home, thick and tangible. To modern eyes accustomed to light at the flick of a switch, this darkness would be disorienting, almost suffocating. But to you, it's the natural state of night, something humans have endured since time began. You settle onto your bed, removing only your outer garments. Unlike your future descendants who change into special clothes for sleeping, you simply wear fewer layers. Your bed is a simple wooden frame with a mattress stuffed with straw. It crackles slightly as you shift your weight. The fire's glow dims as you pull a woolen blanket around your shoulders. In winter, you might sleep fully clothed, perhaps sharing body heat with family members. Tonight is mild, but the blanket offers comfort against more than just the cool air. It's a shield against the night itself. As you lie in semi-darkness, the sounds of your home become more pronounced. The settling of timber beams overhead, the occasional scurry of a mouse along the wall, the soft hiss and pop of the fire. Your world has become smaller, limited to what you can hear rather than see. Sleep comes, but not as you might expect. Unlike the modern ideal of 8 uninterrupted hours, you drift into what historians now call first sleep, a period of slumber lasting several hours after sunset. This isn't insomnia or disrupted sleep. It's the natural pattern your body knows. Dreams come, vivid and sometimes troubling. Medieval understanding of dreams differs from modern psychological interpretations. You might see dreams as omens or visitations. A dream of falling might predict poor harvest. Flying could suggest good fortune. These night visions carry weight. You wake sometime around midnight, the fire now just glowing embers. This waking is natural, expected, a phenomenon called the watch that separates first sleep from second sleep. It's a quiet, meditative time, neither fully awake nor asleep, a strange liminal space between worlds. During this midnight watch, your thoughts turn inward. You might pray silently, reciting familiar words that comfort in the darkness. Religion isn't just Sunday worship. It's woven into every aspect of life, a framework for understanding both the visible world and what lies beyond. The night outside your walls is alive with sounds. An owl hoots from a nearby tree. The wind whispers through thatched roofs. Occasionally, a dog barks at some real or imagined disturbance. Each sound carries different weight in darkness than it would in daylight. You resist the urge to peer outside. Night belongs to different forces, natural and supernatural. Wolves might prowl the forest edge. Foxes hunt near the chicken coops. But your medieval mind also populates the darkness with beings from stories told around winter fires. Spirits, fey folk, wandering souls. Salt lines some of your windowsills, an old protection against unwelcome visitors. Iron hangs above the door, a horseshoe perhaps, another ward against mischievous or malevolent forces. These precautions might seem superstitious to your future descendants, but to you, they're practical measures. You lie awake, listening. Unlike modern homes with their sealed environments, your cottage breathes with the outside world. Drafts find their way through wattle and daub. The roof occasionally shifts and settles. You've learned to distinguish between normal sounds and those that might signal danger. Eventually, you drift back into second sleep, which will last until dawn. This biphasic sleep pattern isn't unique to you. It's how humans slept for thousands of years before artificial lighting changed our rhythms. The midnight waking isn't insomnia. It's your body's natural cycle. Dreams come again, perhaps gentler now. The church teaches that morning dreams are more reliable as omens than evening ones. You don't question this wisdom. It's part of the accumulated knowledge passed down through generations, as reliable as the turning of seasons. You wake to pre-dawn light and the crowing of roosters. The world is gray and misty, but the absolute darkness has retreated. You've survived another night, not a dramatic feat, but the quiet victory that every dawn brings in a world where darkness held both physical and spiritual dangers. The fire needs tending first thing. You kneel before the hearth, blowing gently on the embers, adding small twigs and then larger pieces of wood. The flame catches, bringing warmth and light back to your small domain. This daily resurrection of fire connects you to every human ancestor before you. You unbolt the door, opening it to the fresh morning air. The village is coming alive again. Smoke rising from chimneys, animals stirring in their pens, early risers already moving about their tasks. The night's isolation gives way to community once more. Standing in your doorway, you take a deep breath of morning air. Your modern descendants might rush to check messages on glowing screens, but your morning information comes through senses. The smell of rain approaching, the sound of the mill wheel already turning, the sight of birds circling above the fields. Last night's fears seem distant in the morning light. The supernatural concerns that felt so pressing in darkness now retreat to the edges of thought. This daily cycle of fear and relief, darkness and light, isolation and community, forms the rhythm of medieval life. You break your fast with the same simple fare as yesterday: bread, perhaps softened in ale or milk if available. Your wooden spoon is smooth from years of use, worn to the shape of your hand. There's comfort in these daily rituals, unchanged through seasons and years. As you prepare for another day of labor, you carry no timepiece, no written schedule. The sun and seasons dictate your work. Winter brings different tasks than summer: preserving food, repairing tools, spinning wool. Today will follow yesterday's pattern, as tomorrow will follow today's. The certainty of this rhythm brings its own kind of peace. While your life lacks modern comforts, it also lacks modern anxieties about career advancement or digital comparison with others. Your place in the world is fixed, challenging in many ways, but clear and understandable. Before heading to the fields, you might stop at the village church. The stone building stands at the center of community life, not just for Sunday worship, but as a gathering place, a landmark, a refuge. You dip your fingers in the holy water, make the sign of the cross, perhaps whisper a brief prayer, Religion isn't a separate part of life, but the lens through which everything is understood. The calendar revolves around feast days and fasts. The church bells mark time. Priests interpret both scripture and natural events. A comet, a birth defect, an unusually bountiful harvest. Your relationship with faith might be more complex than modern stereotypes suggest. While respecting the church's authority, you also maintain older traditions, herbs hung for protection, rituals for planting and harvest. Christianity has absorbed many pagan practices rather than erasing them. As you work through another day, your thoughts occasionally drift to the night ahead. Each sunset brings the same challenge: darkness without easy remedy. Your modern descendants might grumble about power outages that last hours. You face darkness that lasts half your life during winter months. The communal work allows conversation, a luxury often overlooked when considering medieval hardships. As hands work, tongues wag, sharing stories, trading remedies for common ailments, discussing news from neighboring villages. Oral tradition remains strong in a world where few can read. You might hear a tale from someone who traveled to the nearest town, bringing back descriptions of strange sights. A merchant in foreign clothes, a new style of hat worn by nobles, rumors of politics from the royal court. These stories are like windows opening briefly onto a wider world. Laughter rings out occasionally across the fields. Despite the hardships of medieval life, humor remains a constant companion. Jokes might be earthy, focusing on bodily functions or marital relations. Funny stories pass from generation to generation, each teller adding their own embellishments. Midday brings another simple meal and brief rest. You might lie back on the ground looking up at the passing clouds, naming their shapes just as children will do centuries later. These small moments of wonder and imagination aren't unique to any time period. They're simply human. The afternoon work seems to pass more quickly than the mornings. Your body has found its rhythm, hands moving with practiced efficiency. There's satisfaction in tangible labor, in seeing direct results from your efforts, something many of your future descendants will find missing from their work. As the sun begins its westward descent, familiar urgency returns. Night is coming, bringing its own set of challenges. You gather your tools, perhaps collecting some herbs or berries spotted on the path home. Nothing goes to waste in your world. Each resource is valuable. Back in your cottage, you move through evening preparations with practiced efficiency. Food is prepared, water is fetched, small repairs are made while light still permits. These tasks aren't just practical, they're a form of protection against the coming darkness, a way of controlling what you can. The curfew bell sounds its warning just as you're securing your home for the night. Throughout the village, doors close and are barred from within. Shutters block out the last dying light. Families gather around hearths that serve as both source of warmth and center of household activities. Tonight, perhaps you work by firelight for a while. Women typically spin. The constant need for thread makes this an almost perpetual task. Men might carve wood or repair tools. Children learn by watching and helping. The family works as a unit, each member contributing according to ability. Conversation flows around the fire. Without books or other entertainment, storytelling becomes an art form. Tales passed down through generations, some moral lessons disguised as entertainment, others simply amusing anecdotes, a few frightening enough to make listeners edge closer to the fire. You might sing as you work, old songs with melodies that wind back through time. Music isn't just entertainment, but a way to regulate work rhythms, preserve history, and express emotions both joyful and sorrowful. These songs connect you to your ancestors and will live on through your descendants. The fire begins to die down, signaling bedtime approaching. You bank the coals carefully, covering them with ashes to preserve them until morning. The cottage grows dimmer, shadows deepening in corners. Soon only the faint orange glow of embers provides any light at all. As darkness envelops your home once more, you settle onto your bed for another night of first sleep, midnight waking, and second sleep. This rhythm feels natural to you, unquestioned, just as your distant descendants will find their 8-hour consolidated sleep pattern equally natural. During these night hours, your senses become heightened. A crack from the roof beams might freeze you momentarily until identified as normal settling. The wind through thatch creates whispers that sometimes sound almost like voices. Your imagination populates the darkness with possibilities. Your midnight waking brings that strange liminal state again. Not quite asleep, not fully awake. In this space between worlds, boundaries seem thinner. The barrier between natural and supernatural, between physical and spiritual doesn't feel quite as solid as during daylight hours. Perhaps tonight you hear sounds from outside, the howl of a distant wolf, the rustle of something moving through the village. Animals, most likely, but in midnight darkness, with tales of spirits fresh in mind, even familiar sounds take on new dimensions. You lie still, listening, waiting for the sounds to pass. Unlike your modern descendants who might flip a switch to banish darkness, you have no quick remedy for fear. Prayer offers comfort, as do the protective measures already in place: salt, iron, symbols carved discreetly into wooden beams. Eventually, second sleep claims you again, carrying you toward morning. Dreams might bring comfort or disturbance, messages or merely the mind's wanderings. Either way, they're part of night's territory, to be interpreted or forgotten with the coming dawn. Morning arrives once more, repeating the cycle that structures your days. The fire is rekindled, the door unbarred, the shutters open to admit light and air. Night's fears recede like morning mist, replaced by the practical concerns of another working day. This rhythm continues through changing seasons, each bringing its own work and challenges. Spring means planting and the birth of animals. Summer brings long days of fieldwork and gathering herbs. Autumn is harvest time, the critical period that determines winter survival. Winter presents the greatest challenge to your medieval life. Days shorten dramatically, meaning more hours of darkness to endure. Cold penetrates your humble dwelling despite the fire. Food stores must be carefully rationed to last until spring brings new growth. Yet winter also brings its own pleasures. Work slows somewhat, allowing more time for storytelling and handcrafts. Holidays bring feasting and celebration, brief, bright moments in the dark months. Communities draw closer, sharing resources and fellowship to survive the lean times. The church calendar provides structure through changing seasons. Advent, Christmas, Lent, Easter, each brings its own rituals and observations. Feast days punctuate the year with celebration, while fast days remind of spiritual discipline and sacrifice. Your medieval life flows through these cycles of day and night, season after season, year after year. The patterns are deep and ancient, connected to Earth's rhythms in ways your modern descendants will largely forget, as they create artificial environments with steady temperature and light. Despite the challenges, or perhaps because of them, there's a certain wholeness to your existence. Work connects directly to survival. Community isn't optional, but essential. The natural world isn't something visited occasionally, but the constant context of your life. You know every plant in the surrounding fields, their uses for food and medicine. You read weather patterns in cloud formations and animal behavior. Stars aren't distant curiosities, but navigation aids and timekeepers. This intimate knowledge of your environment would astonish your future descendants. When illness strikes, you turn to remedies passed through generations. Herbs with properties science will later confirm, poultices and teas that bring real relief. These are supplemented with prayer and sometimes charms or rituals that connect physical healing with spiritual well-being. Your understanding of health differs from modern medicine. Illness might be explained through the four humors: blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile, whose balance determines well-being. Treatments aim to restore this balance through diet, bloodletting, or purgatives. Death is a more visible companion in your world than in modern times. Infant mortality remains high. Accidents, disease, and childbirth claim lives regularly. Graves are marked simply, if at all, in the churchyard where generations of villagers rest together. Yet this proximity to death doesn't make medieval people morbid. Rather, it integrates death into the pattern of life, something expected and prepared for, not hidden away. The church provides rituals that help communities process grief and honor the departed. Your concept of self differs from modern individualism. Identity comes primarily from your place within family, village, and larger social structures. Personal ambition in the modern sense would seem strange. Improvement comes through community advancement rather than individual achievement. Even your sense of privacy differs. Your small home likely shelters multiple family members with limited separation of spaces. Sleeping, eating, working, all happen in shared areas. The idea of personal space or alone time would seem peculiar, perhaps even troubling. Social bonds form your safety net. No government programs exist to help during hardship. Instead, you rely on family, neighbors, and church community. These relationships aren't just pleasant additions to life, but essential survival mechanisms. The rhythm of medieval days and nights continues, season after season, generation after generation. Children grow to take their parents' places in fields and cottages. The elderly share wisdom until they join ancestors in the churchyard. The village endures through individual passings. And through it all, night remains a time of vulnerability and wonder. Unlike your modern descendants who extend day indefinitely with artificial light, you accept night's dominion for half of your existence. This shapes your perspective in ways that will be largely forgotten by future generations. When electric lights eventually banish natural darkness, something will be lost along with the fears and hardships: a connection to celestial rhythms, a respect for nature's power, a communal experience of vulnerability. Your descendants will gain much, but this intimate knowledge of night will fade. Today, those descendants might romanticize your medieval life, imagining it simpler or more authentic. They might not understand how the darkness shaped you, the practical fears of injury or fire when moving about without light, the deeper anxieties about what might lurk unseen. Yet they might envy certain aspects too: the direct connection between labor and survival, the strong community bonds, the intimate knowledge of natural cycles. Modern life will bring comforts you cannot imagine, but will fragment the wholeness of your experience. As we close this journey through medieval night, consider how darkness shaped humanity for most of our existence. The fear, the wonder, the enforced stillness and reflection, all formed minds and societies in ways that artificial light has transformed. Our ancient relationship with darkness fades with each generation. The night you knew, absolute, unyielding, filled with both danger and possibility, exists now only in remote places far from modern civilization. Your descendants might go their entire lives without experiencing true darkness, without knowing how it feels to navigate a world by sound and touch when sight fails. Perhaps in this we've lost something valuable along with the hardships: a humility before nature's power, a connection to rhythms beyond human control, a shared vulnerability that bound communities together. The night you knew taught lessons about limitations and interdependence that artificial light allows us to forget. So as you settle once more into your straw bed, pulling woolen blankets against the gathering dark, know that your experience connects you to countless generations before, and that it preserves something precious that future generations will barely remember: how to live with the night, not just despite it. In the soft glow of your dying fire, in the midnight waking, in the whispered prayers against darkness, you carry forward an ancient human tradition. And though your descendants will transform their relationship with night, something of your wisdom echoes still in their dormant memories of darkness. Let's explore more deeply how the medieval night shaped your life, for it was not merely a time of rest but a realm unto itself, with its own rules, dangers, and occasional delights that your descendants will never fully comprehend. Your relationship with food is intimately connected to the cycle of light and dark. Unlike modern refrigeration that preserves at any hour, your food preparation follows the sun. Morning might find you churning butter while daylight allows you to see the change from liquid to solid, a transformation that would be impossible to monitor in darkness. Bread, your staple food, requires hours of preparation. Grinding grain if you're fortunate enough to have your own quernstones, mixing dough, allowing it to rise, shaping loaves. All must be timed to finish before daylight fades, as baking in darkness risks undercooked centers or burnt crusts when you can't properly see the color changing. Your meals follow a different pattern than the 3 daily feedings of modern life. Breaking fast happens with dawn's first light, a simple affair to fuel morning work. Midday brings the largest meal when energy is most needed. Evening offers a lighter supper, consumed well before darkness falls, allowing time for digestion before sleep. Preservation techniques occupy much of your spring and summer: drying herbs, smoking meats, pickling vegetables. These activities must be completed during the longer daylight hours, creating stores that will sustain through winter's darkness, when fresh food becomes scarce and daylight hours for preparation shrink dramatically. The hearth fire serves multiple purposes beyond mere warmth. It's your cooking source, your light, your protection against both physical cold and spiritual threats that lurk in darkness. Tending this fire is perhaps your most essential daily task. Allowing it to die completely would mean fumbling in darkness to restart it, a challenging task even in daylight. Your relationship with water differs from modern abundance. Wells and streams require daylight visits, carrying heavy buckets home for cooking, minimal washing, and drinking. Night brings no running taps, no midnight glasses of water without preparation. You learn to anticipate needs before darkness falls. Personal hygiene follows seasonal patterns and daylight availability. Full body washing might be a weekly or monthly affair, typically during warmer months when water doesn't chill already cold bodies. Hands and faces receive more frequent attention, but always during daylight when you can see what you're doing and water doesn't feel quite so frigid. Your teeth receive attention through chewing on twigs with naturally antiseptic properties, or rubbing them with cloths dipped in various herbal preparations. These activities happen in morning light, when you can see what you're doing. Night brings no bathroom mirrors with bright lights for careful examination. Hair care means occasional washing but more frequent combing to remove tangles, dirt, and unwanted visitors like lice or fleas. This grooming often becomes a social activity, family members or friends attending to each other's hair while sharing conversation. Always, these tasks require daylight for proper execution. Clothing, too, connects to the rhythm of light and dark. Washing happens on designated days when weather permits, always starting early to allow maximum drying time in sun and wind. Mending requires good light for tiny stitches, so winter evenings might find you squinting by firelight to repair tears before they worsen. Your garments themselves reflect practicality rather than fashion. Multiple layers allow adjustment for temperature without complete changes. Aprons and overgarments protect inner clothing from the worst soil, extending the time between difficult washings. Everything is designed for durability and function. Color in your world comes primarily from natural sources: plants, minerals, insects. Bright dyes are expensive, meaning most peasant clothing exists in muted tones of brown, gray, off-white, and plant-derived greens or yellows. These colors help clothes hide soil from constant work, extending time between precious washings. The sensory experience of medieval night differs profoundly from modern darkness. Without light pollution, stars appear by the thousands, not the dozen or so visible to your urban descendants. The Milky Way stretches as a bright river across the sky, so luminous it sometimes casts faint shadows on the clearest nights. Moonlight transforms your familiar landscape into something otherworldly. Fields silvered by full moonlight might allow necessary travel between villages, or to assist with nighttime birthing of livestock. Yet this same beautiful light creates deep shadows where imagination places threats both natural and supernatural. Sound becomes your primary sense after dark. You learn to distinguish between the rustle of mice in thatch, the movement of livestock in nearby pens, the distant howl of wolves near the forest edge. Each carries different implications for safety, requiring different responses if trouble threatens. Smell, too, heightens in darkness. The scent of wood smoke means safety and civilization. The musty odor of damp thatch might warn of leaks needing repair. The smell of animals, both domestic and wild, carries on night breezes, telling stories your eyes cannot witness in the absolute dark. Touch guides you through your home after the fire dims to embers. Your fingers know the feel of wall surfaces, furniture edges, the smooth wooden handles of essential tools. You navigate by memory and tactile familiarity, hands extended slightly before you to prevent painful collisions. The taste of evening lingers differently than morning flavors. Perhaps it's the day's accumulated smoke in the air, or the slight sourness of ale that's warmed through daylight hours. Evening foods carry comfort: warm pottage, bread dipped in drippings, fortification against the coming night. Time itself feels different after dark. Without clocks or watches, you measure night's passage through less precise means: the position of stars wheeling overhead, the changing sounds of nocturnal animals, the gradual cooling of your hearth fire, the heaviness of your own eyelids as sleep approaches. Your medieval night brings a different relationship with sound. Modern nights pulse with distant traffic, air conditioning hums, refrigerator motors cycling on and off. Your darkness carries natural sounds: wind through trees, animals moving in darkness, the occasional call of night birds, the creak and settle of your own humble dwelling. Conversation changes after sunset. Daytime talk focuses on practical matters, work coordination, weather observations, community news. Evening brings storytelling, reminiscence, speculation about matters beyond daily survival. The quality of voices often softens, as if loud tones might disturb the darkness itself. Music might accompany these evening hours, though instruments are simple. Perhaps a wooden flute, a small drum, a stringed instrument for those with greater skill or resources. Songs pass through generations, carrying histories, warnings, celebrations, and the accumulated wisdom of your people. Religion permeates every aspect of medieval life, but perhaps nowhere more powerfully than in the approach to night. Evening prayers seek protection through darkness hours. Symbols and rituals, some Christian, some older, provide psychological comfort against night's unseen threats. The concept of evil differs in your world. Modern people might view evil abstractly, as harmful human actions or systemic injustice. Your medieval understanding sees evil as tangible, present, actively seeking opportunities. Night provides those opportunities, when darkness conceals malevolent forces, both human and otherwise. Yet spirituality isn't entirely fear-based. Your midnight waking often brings moments of deep contemplation, quiet prayer, or peaceful communion with something beyond yourself. Many mystics and saints throughout medieval history specifically mention these midnight hours as times of profound spiritual connection. Dreams carry different significance in your medieval understanding. They aren't merely brain activities or subconscious processing, but potential messages from God, from saints, from departed loved ones, or sometimes from darker forces. Morning conversations often include discussion of significant dreams and their possible meanings. The physical structure of your home reflects night's challenges. Windows remain small, not just because glass is expensive, but because larger openings create vulnerability. Doors are solid, with bars rather than locks. Even the arrangement of sleeping spaces considers protective positioning away from direct access points. Your medieval bed differs from modern expectations. The frame might be simple wooden boards raised slightly off the floor to reduce drafts and deter pests. The mattress contains whatever stuffing is available: straw, wool, if you're fortunate, dried moss or leaves in poorer households. Comfort isn't the primary consideration. Protection from ground moisture and cold matters more. Bedding follows practical patterns. Linen sheets might be affordable for some, while others sleep directly on the mattress covering. Woolen blankets provide warmth, their natural lanolin helping repel moisture. Pillows, if present, contain straw, feathers, or wool scraps. Everything serves multiple purposes and lasts for years with care. Children's sleep arrangements reflect different attitudes toward privacy and protection. Young children sleep with parents for warmth and security. Older children might share sleeping spaces regardless of gender, a practice that continues until marriage. The concept of separate bedrooms for each family member would seem not just luxurious, but wastefully isolating. Animals sometimes share your living space, especially in winter. Chickens might roost in a corner. A valued cow or goat could occupy part of the main room in particularly cold weather. These arrangements provide additional warmth for humans, while protecting valuable livestock from predators and freezing temperatures. Night brings different relationships with pests. Mice and rats become bolder in darkness, emboldened by human stillness to explore for food remnants. Their scratching and scurrying punctuate the quiet hours. Larger vermin might be deterred by cats kept specifically for this purpose, one of the few pets valued primarily for their utility rather than companionship. Insects share your dwelling with varying degrees of irritation. Fleas and lice are unfortunate constants despite efforts at cleanliness. Spiders are often tolerated or even welcomed for their consumption of more troublesome bugs. Flies disappear with cold weather but proliferate in summer, drawn to food and animals. The community aspect of medieval life doesn't end with sunset. Special occasions might bring neighbor homes together, pooling precious resources like candles or lamp oil to create enough light for extended evening activities. Wedding celebrations, winter festivals, or harvest completions justify such extravagance. Village leadership considers night management part of their responsibility. The selection of night watchmen, enforcement of curfew, organization of emergency responses, all acknowledge darkness as a condition requiring specific community adaptations rather than individual solutions. Knowledge passes differently in a world without electric light. Evening hours by firelight become times of oral tradition, when children absorb community history, practical skills, moral lessons, and cultural identity through stories rather than written texts. This system works effectively for centuries before widespread literacy. Memory serves different functions in your medieval world. Without easy reference to written materials, especially after dark, you develop mnemonic techniques, mental storage systems, and memory palaces that would impress your future descendants. What they might Google in seconds, you store in carefully organized mental archives. Imagination flourishes differently in darkness. Modern entertainment constantly feeds the mind with external images. Your night hours, especially during midnight waking, create space for internal landscapes to develop. This isn't mere fancy, but a practiced skill that helps process emotions, solve problems, and find meaning in difficult circumstances. Creativity follows different patterns without artificial extension of daylight. Certain crafts, pottery, blacksmithing, detailed needlework, require good light and thus become seasonal activities, expanding in summer's long days and contracting during winter's brief light. Other creative expressions, storytelling, singing, simpler woodcarving, adapt better to firelit evenings. Relationships develop different dimensions through shared darkness. Modern couples might spend evenings in parallel activities, each absorbed in separate screens. Your medieval partnership involves genuine togetherness through darkness hours, conversations unfolding without visual distractions, physical closeness necessary for shared warmth, becoming emotional intimacy as well. Parenting, too, follows night's rhythm. Children learn early to respect darkness boundaries, understanding both practical dangers and cultural prohibitions. Evening becomes teaching time, when work slows and wisdom passes between generations. Bedtime stories serve not just as entertainment but as essential education about the world's workings. The elderly hold special status in evening hours. Their accumulated stories become primary entertainment. Their knowledge of remedies proves valuable when illness strikes in darkness with no physicians available. Their interpretation of unusual sounds or events provides reassurance when younger imaginations might panic. Your seasonal awareness develops with acute sensitivity unknown to modern people. Winter solstice, the longest night, doesn't pass as merely a date on a calendar, but arrives as a physically felt reality, a darkness so extended it seems it might never release its grip on the world. The gradual lengthening of days afterward brings palpable relief. Summer solstice brings the opposite experience. Night reduced to a brief interlude of a few hours, allowing extended work, and perhaps even rare evening activities outdoors. These longest days become precious opportunities for tasks requiring good light, preparations for the inevitable return of longer darkness. Spring and autumn mark transitional periods when darkness and light exist in more equal measure. These balance points carry their own significance, celebrated in festivals that acknowledge the turning of the great wheel of the year, the endless cycle that governs all life in your medieval world. Weather impacts your experience of night in ways your descendants might never consider. Rain drumming on thatch creates both peaceful rhythm and practical worry. Will the roof leak? Snow muffles ordinary sounds while creating its own strange acoustics. Wind finds every gap in walls, bringing whispers and moans that feed both physical discomfort and spiritual unease. Storm nights bring particular challenges. Lightning momentarily transforms your darkened home with brilliant flashes that leave you night-blind again. Thunder shakes the very timbers of your dwelling. Rain might find weaknesses in your roof, creating puddles on packed earth floors. These elements merge into experiences both terrifying and awe-inspiring. Seasonal illnesses often manifest or worsen at night. Winter coughs become more pronounced in horizontal sleeping positions. Fevers spike in evening hours. Pain seems to intensify in darkness. Remedies must be prepared in advance of sunset, as gathering herbs or measuring ingredients becomes nearly impossible in full darkness. Your knowledge of celestial movements surpasses what most modern people retain. You recognize not just the moon's phases but understand their practical implications. From the best times to plant certain crops to the brightness of night pathways when necessary, travel can't be avoided. The night sky isn't decorative but informational. Stars serve as both timepieces and calendars. Certain constellations appearing above the horizon mark seasonal transitions more reliably than any human record. Their movements track the hours through night watches. This knowledge isn't specialized but common. Children learn to read the sky just as they learn to speak. The moon's light transforms your world in ways electric bulbs never can. Full moon bathes everything in silver-blue radiance that creates both beauty and strangeness. Familiar paths become otherworldly. Shadows gain substance and depth. This natural illumination sometimes allows necessary night activities that can't wait for daylight. Lunar knowledge becomes practical wisdom. Certain tasks, from planting root vegetables to cutting hair, follow lunar schedules believed to influence outcomes. Whether these connections are scientifically valid matters less than their role in creating structure and meaning in your medieval existence. Nocturnal animals become significant presences in your night awareness. Owl calls carry different meanings depending on direction and timing. Bat flights at dusk indicate weather patterns for the coming day. Fox barks near your dwelling might warn of weaknesses in chicken enclosures. Each creature speaks to those who know how to listen. Your medieval world maintains complex relationships with these night creatures. Some, like owls, carry contradictory associations, wisdom in some contexts, ill omen in others. Bats might be feared for their strange appearance yet valued for controlling insects. The natural and supernatural intertwine in these understandings. Night sounds form a language for those attuned to its nuances. The sudden silence of crickets might warn of approaching predators. Changes in wind direction bring different fragrances that forecast weather. The quality of animal calls, urgent versus casual, conveys information about potential threats or peaceful conditions. Village architecture reflects night's challenges. Homes cluster together rather than spreading across available land, creating communal security. Central spaces allow for shared resources like wells or baking ovens. This arrangement means help remains within calling distance, a comfort when darkness brings vulnerability. Town planning, where it exists, considers night navigation. Main thoroughfares might be slightly wider to catch moonlight. Corners of important buildings could feature distinctive elements felt by touch when vision fails. These subtle accommodations acknowledge darkness as a constant condition, requiring adaptation. Social status reveals itself partly through relationship with night. Nobility might afford beeswax candles that burn cleanly, while poorer households use tallow that smokes and smells of animal fat. The wealthy might employ servants specifically to maintain light sources through evening hours. These differences create entirely different night experiences within the same community. Town dwellers experience somewhat different nights than rural villagers. Close proximity of buildings blocks both moonlight and starlight that might illuminate country paths. More people moving in smaller spaces creates both additional security and new concerns about fire spreading quickly through tightly packed structures. Castle life represents yet another night experience. Stone walls offer security but hold cold even more efficiently than humble cottages. Great halls might maintain fires through the night, but distant chambers grow icy. Servants maintain constant watch, creating a continuous human presence rarely experienced in smaller dwellings. Monastery nights follow their own rhythms, structured by devotional practices rather than agricultural necessity. The canonical hours divide night into periods marked by prayer and contemplation. Monks rise for matins at midnight and lauds before dawn, creating human activity during hours when secular communities remain largely dormant. For travelers, night brings particular hazards. Roads emptied of honest traffic become domains of those with reason to avoid daylight scrutiny. Inns and monasteries offering overnight accommodation become essential refuges, their candles and fires visible from distance like beacons drawing in weary wanderers before curfew bells. Hospitality carries special significance in a world where night travelers face genuine peril. Offering shelter before sunset becomes a moral obligation in many communities. Even humble homes might accommodate unexpected guests rather than sending them into dangerous darkness. The shared vulnerability of night creating bonds across social divisions. Festivals and celebrations often incorporate night symbolism. Winter holidays center around light conquering darkness. Candles, bonfires, torches creating human defiance against the longest nights. Summer celebrations might extend cautiously into early evening, taking advantage of extended twilight for rare community gatherings after work hours. Spiritual traditions across faiths acknowledge night's power. Christianity adapts earlier practices with candle blessings, evening prayers, saints associated with protection through darkness. Older beliefs persist in practices like turning clothing inside out if traveling after dark, or carrying bread for offering to night spirits. These traditions blend into a practical spirituality that comforts through darkest hours. Morning carries particular sweetness in the medieval experience. Each dawn represents not just a new day but survival of another night. The first light breaking through shutters brings visceral relief, a daily resurrection from darkness that modern people, surrounded by electric illumination, can never fully appreciate. As the first cockcrow sounds, your body responds with ancient recognition. This natural alarm marks the transition from vulnerability back to capability, from isolation to community, from imagination's realm to physical reality. The world contracts from shadowy infinities back to comprehensible dimensions. The morning firelighting ritual carries deeper significance than mere practicality. Rekindling flame from carefully preserved embers represents continuity, triumph over night's extinction. This daily act connects to humanity's earliest mastery of fire, the technology that first pushed back against darkness's absolute rule. Your first morning steps outside bring sensory confirmation of world's return. Dew dampens your feet, carrying Earth's rich scent upward. Birds create dawn chorus, each species joining an established sequence. The eastern sky shifts through subtle color changes, announcing sun's approach long before its actual appearance. Community reestablishes itself with morning movements. Smoke rises from neighboring chimneys. Livestock sounds signal feeding time. Voices call between dwellings, confirming overnight wellness. The shared experience of emerging from private darkness into communal light reinforces social bonds essential for survival. Morning conversations often begin with dream recounting, night sounds identified, unusual occurrences noted. These exchanges serve multiple purposes: entertainment, information sharing, and subtle checking that community members maintained mental wellness through isolation of darkness. Strange dreams or fears can be normalized, rendered less powerful by daylight discussion. The physical toll of medieval night manifests in morning stiffness. Sleeping surfaces lack modern ergonomic design. Cold seeps into joints despite blankets. Smoke irritates lungs through hours of shallow breathing. These discomforts form part of daily experience, acknowledged but rarely centered. Simply part of human condition. Your morning meal serves both nutritional and psychological functions. Breaking bread together, whether simple family unit or larger community gathering, reestablishes normal social patterns after night separation. Food and stomach grounds body and physical reality after dreams disorientations. Routine consumption brings comfort through predictability. Work resumes with daylight, muscles remembering tasks performed countless times before. This physical engagement reconnects mind and body, banishing night's phantoms through tangible productivity. Medieval life leaves little time for dwelling on darkness once sun reclaims the sky. Throughout your day, small preparations for coming night continue alongside immediate tasks. Firewood gets stacked within easy reach. Water vessels are filled before late afternoon. Necessary tools are returned to established places where hands can find them even in complete darkness. These habits become unconscious, preventative measures against night's limitations. The yearly cycle brings dramatic changes to your night experience. Summer might see darkness lasting merely 6 or 7 hours, while winter extends night's domain to 14 or more. These extremes require different adaptations, from adjusting sleep patterns to redistributing daily tasks to maximize precious light. Harvest time brings particular urgency regarding darkness. Crops must be gathered, processed, stored before weather turns. This might mean working until last possible moment of daylight, then continuing time-sensitive tasks by firelight. The borderland between seasons creates pressure that both communities and individuals feel intensely. Winter nights bring enforced idleness that challenges both body and mind. Physical activity reduces dramatically as fields lie dormant under snow or frost. Indoor tasks, mending, carving, spinning, can continue by firelight, but with limitations. This seasonal shift requires psychological adjustment after summer's constant motion. Yet winter darkness also brings opportunities for community cohesion. Households might gather together, pooling resources like firewood and candles to create space for shared activities. Stories preserved through oral tradition find perfect setting in these firelit gatherings. Social bonds strengthen through shared experience of winter's challenges. Spring's arrival brings gradual re-emergence from darkness's dominance. Days lengthen noticeably, allowing expanded activity. The psychological lift this brings can't be overstated, not just anticipation of warmer weather, but visceral relief as balance shifts from night's majority claim on hours back toward daylight's dominance. Through all these seasonal fluctuations, your medieval understanding integrates darkness as essential counterpart to light, not just absence but presence with its own nature and necessities. Night isn't merely time when sun becomes invisible, but a different mode of existence requiring specific adaptations, both practical and spiritual. This integrated understanding permeates medieval culture in ways modern people might find difficult to comprehend. Darkness and light form complementary aspects of existence rather than light representing normality interrupted by inconvenient darkness. Both conditions require appropriate responses, neither holding absolute priority. Special nights punctuate the medieval year with significance beyond ordinary darkness. Christmas Eve brings rare midnight church services, candlelit processions creating rivers of light through otherwise darkened settlements. St. John's Eve near summer solstice might feature bonfires visible between communities, temporary triumph over shortest night. All Hallows Eve, the precursor to modern Halloween, carries particular weight as boundary time when separation between living and dead thins. Night protection rituals intensify during such transition points in annual cycle. The veil between worlds seems more permeable, requiring additional spiritual precautions. These special nights create markers in annual experience, points of orientation in cyclical time. Modern calendar dates might hold intellectual meaning, but these traditional observances carry physical, emotional, and spiritual significance that embodied experience of darkness and light makes tangible rather than abstract. For children, night brings different lessons than daylight hours. Darkness teaches patience, self-regulation, management of fear. Young ones learn to distinguish between imagination and reality, between harmless shadows and genuine threats. These lessons form essential preparation for adult responsibilities in a world where darkness remains untamed. Elderly community members often experience changed relationship with night as aging brings altered sleep patterns. Their wisdom about managing darkness becomes valuable community resource. Their midnight wakings might coincide with needs for watching sick individuals or monitoring weather changes that younger sleepers might miss. Throughout medieval society, practical knowledge accumulates around night management, from positioning furniture for easiest navigation by touch to maintenance of banked fires for maximum duration. These skills pass between generations as essential survival techniques rather than quaint historical curiosities. The emotional landscape of medieval night encompasses fear but also wonder, isolation but also intimacy, vulnerability but also rest. Modern attempts to recapture this experience, camping trips or power outage adventures, can approximate physical conditions but rarely reproduce the cultural and psychological framework that gave medieval darkness its full dimension. Your medieval self navigates this complex nocturnal terrain with hard-won wisdom, accumulated through generations of human experience. The night you know represents not primitive underdevelopment, but sophisticated adaptation to conditions that dominated human existence for millennia before recent technological innovations. As you move through your medieval days and nights, this awareness forms not conscious philosophy but embodied knowledge. The accumulated wisdom of countless ancestors, who also faced darkness without modern remedies. Their solutions, preserved through oral tradition and practical demonstration, enable your survival through each night's returning challenge. And when morning light breaks once more through your shutters, the simple gratitude you feel connects you to every human who ever witnessed dawn's return. This primal experience, darkness yielding to light, vulnerability transforming to capability, isolation opening to community, remains one of the few constants across human experience throughout recorded history. Modern artificial lighting will eventually transform human relationship with darkness so completely that your medieval experience becomes almost incomprehensible to future generations. They will struggle to imagine night as you know it, absolute, unavoidable, demanding specific adaptations both practical and psychological. Yet something in those future humans will still respond to darkness with instinctive awareness, shaped by countless ancestors who lived as you do. Their bodies will still recognize the quality of darkness that once dominated human experience. Something ancient will still stir when power fails and modern lights extinguish, revealing night's original face after centuries of concealment. In that moment, across the divide of centuries, your medieval wisdom might whisper to them, teaching once more the forgotten art of living with darkness, rather than merely pushing it away. The knowledge your world preserved through necessity might offer unexpected guidance when technological solutions temporarily fail. For the night you know, the true night unaltered by artificial illumination, represents not merely absence of light but presence of something essential to human experience. The darkness that shaped religions, cultures, architecture, social patterns, and individual psyches for millennia remains embedded in human memory, awaiting rediscovery. As you settle once more onto your straw-filled mattress, pulling woolen blankets close against the gathering dark, know that your experience connects you to countless generations before, and that it preserves something precious that future generations will barely remember: how to live with the night, not just despite it. In the soft glow of your dying fire, in the midnight waking, in the whispered prayers against darkness, you carry forward an ancient human tradition. And though your descendants will transform their relationship with night, something of your wisdom echoes still in their dormant memories of darkness. If this glimpse into the medieval night already gave you chills, imagine what the rest of the story holds. So do me a favor, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next time we open a door to the darker corners of history. And hey, drop a comment below. Would you survive one medieval night or be the first one claimed by the shadows? Like the video if you're still here with the lights on. Now let's step into the darkness together.